Again, my name is Ryan Pruchnic, Managing Vice President of MyoSite. And my presentation is titled, Making Regenerative Medicine a Part of Everyday Medicine. It's not only the title of the presentation, but it's also our mission statement. And it's obviously important to us, and it's really a key focus of today's presentation. So what exactly do I mean when I talk about this statement? We want to keep working tirelessly, like many of you do, till the point where the conversations about regenerative medicine are as commonplace in the doctor's office as conversations about surgical options for patients or drug or device interventions or physical therapy. And this needs to be for all patients. So a little bit of background on us. We are from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We've been around for a little over 20 years. We're part of a larger corporation, Cook Incorporated, who focuses mostly on medical device, and obviously we were formed to get into the world of cellular therapies. Last year, I had the opportunity to speak at this meeting as well, and I introduced our company and our technology, but real briefly, we focus on muscle cells, adult muscle progenitor cells, and it's an autologous platform. So we call it very generically AMDC, autologous muscle-derived cells, where we partner with physicians through our clinical development programs to teach them to extract a small amount of tissue from the patient's thigh muscle. That tissue gets sent to our facility, and we look for the cells that we believe through a lot of research are the ones that are responsible for the repair mechanism of muscle, of damaged muscle. So get the cells, isolate them, grow them up, cryopreserve them, send them back to the same clinic, and then the doctor injects those cells into the same patient where the tissue started. Again, like many other manufacturers, not only do we know we have to deliver a safe and effective product, we have to deliver the best possible customer experience as well. So some of the key metrics that we focus on are getting the smallest biopsy possible so that there's minimal discomfort to the patient. The time from extraction of the tissue to returning of the product. And of course, the number of rebiopsy requests that have to be made because a product couldn't be generated for those patients. Here's a snapshot of our clinical program. As I said, we've been doing this for 20 years, a little over 18, doing clinical trials. We have extensive experience with this technology. We've treated well over 700 patients so far in all of our programs. As you can see from the slide here, our lead indication is for the treatment of stress urinary incontinence in females, where in that program we treated around 600 patients, a little bit more than that, I believe. You'll see some commonalities within our product pipeline strategy, and those commonalities are we're looking for areas of unmet need, we're looking for tissues that we could repair because they're smaller on the volume side, and also these patients are suffering from quality of life disorders. In addition to stress incontinence, the other programs we have are for fecal incontinence, for underactive bladder, and for tongue dysphagia. I'm also happy to announce that through a physician partnership here in California, the California Institute of Regenerative Medicine awarded a rather large grant for us to conduct together a second study for tongue dysphagia for patients who have the swallowing disorders, and we just started enrolling patients within the past month, so that's very exciting. So there's been a recent surge of approvals in our arena, and with the commitment of OTAT, that's fantastic, right? It's been widely lauded, and we're so happy. Honestly, hopefully this time next year we're celebrating another 100 of them. One thing of note from what Dr. Bryan said was that over 90% of the applications are for serious life-threatening disorders, and over 50% of them are for rare disorders. So again, that research has to go on, and it will. But like I said last year, if anybody caught that, Cook MyoSite kind of sounded the alarm a little bit and said, well, if all the attention is going there, or at least a lot of it, what about the patients with quality of life disorders? What about the patients who need these transformative medicines that have these daily impacts to their lives? And after another year of experience behind our back, I hate to say it, but I'm not sure things have gotten better, and in fact, they may have gotten even a little bit more challenging. And we've had a lot of great presentations this week. So we talked about the enormous challenges that this industry has, the enormous obstacles to get these therapies to market and to patients. So we don't need to rehash those, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the additional challenges we're seeing in the quality of life disorder arena. There's just not much of or any appetite for risk tolerance. There doesn't seem to be an allowance for discussions about different ways to get through the clinical development program. And I think that's probably why we don't see much or any drug development in these areas. And when we don't have that, it's hard for us to design clinical studies to compare to something, and we're kind of left forging a path without those comparators. We do have a lot of devices in the arena, but if we're going to be honest, it's not really an even playing field, and sometimes it almost feels like we're playing by different rules. So it's football season here in the U.S., so I'll use a football analogy that me and my colleague were talking about the other day. And it almost feels like when you think about the same patients, the same indication, that some development pathways, and I'll talk about devices, it's almost like they're awarded a touchdown if they just get to the midfield to the 50-yard line. Whereas in cell and gene, we're tasked with going the entire 100 yards and sometimes even beyond. If you look at our lead indication, like I talked about, over 650 patients, and where we find ourselves today doing a third randomized control study, which is incredibly hard to enroll. Even within that program, we looked at the broader population, and then we looked at a population within, and through an RMAT designation, we identified this patient population that has the unmet medical need, seriously debilitating. The data was very supportive of it, but again, we find ourselves doing another study that is, again, I'll keep repeating, is really challenging to enroll. These are 2-year studies, placebo controls. And the reason I'm bringing it up, because after all this time, I am really nervous about this program. I'm really nervous that it just may go on. And that's, trust me, it's not from a lack of effort. The company is pouring so many resources into getting it, but I think it's in dire straits because we're at a dangerously long timeline for a therapy like this. Another example that we have is through our fecal incontinence program. Not as much data in the early phases, but we submitted for an RMAT, and this request got denied. And the reason for that was because of lack of controlled data. So I'm not here to talk about the denial of the RMAT. I just kind of wanted to make a point that, again, we're following the industry and we're looking at other therapies going through. And again, for the same patients, the same indication, we're watching a therapy get a full FDA approval with, it seems like they treated less patients clinically than what we submitted for the RMAT designation. And I can imagine there wasn't any controlled data. So it's, again, back to that uneven playing field. I think we got to keep working to set the rules and make them that everybody knows what they are so that we could go forward with our strategy. Because, and I don't know if this is the case, it probably isn't, but kind of what we're feeling, what we see is don't spend a lot of time on early studies and safety and feasibility studies. Don't invest in dosing studies. Jump right into a placebo-controlled studies, even if you're not ready for it, and design studies that you can beat the endpoints, and then maybe you'll have to worry about how it's going to work on the commercial end afterwards. So, again, I don't know if that's the way that it truly is, that's how it feels, but I think we all agree that it can't be like that, right? Everybody in this ecosystem, we all signed up to put patients first, and that's what we have to keep doing. And again, we're thankful we have a really incredible and patient investor that's doing this for the right reason. But again, I do worry if this program doesn't see the light of day, or some of the other ones, and we have been leading in this arena for a long time. I just wonder how motivational it will be for other researchers to get into quality of life disorder research, or how motivational it will be for investors to get into it. And we know who's going to suffer in the end. It's going to be those patients. So I'll close with this, and it's just a reminder that this is not, and I'll use quotes, not just quality of life. These are patients, these are people, and they have real debilitating disorders. They affect their day-to-day lives. It affects their families. It affects their social, their psychological, their physical well-being. And there's a lot of patients that, even in our studies, they're coming to these trials after they've already had multiple treatments and some other modality. So they're really searching for a treatment. And I guess this is just maybe, hopefully it sparks more interest and more conversations for more call to action. We at Cook, we're going to keep fighting for this and for these patients. We're going to keep fighting until regenerative medicine truly is a part of everyday medicine, and that's for all patients. So thank you for your time. I'll be here for a little bit if anybody has any questions.